Welcome to the show as we jostle things around in the background. Glad to have you with us, Vince, Jesse, me, Sean. We're, of course, all in different locations. Jesse's getting ready to go to a Guardians game. Vince has to go. Is it a track meet you're going to? Or a
track meet was last night. Tonight is soccer. So
right.
Track 2 soccer. He's got practice. So
all right. I've got nowhere to go. So
that's because he's not with you anymore. Like
that's
when
right.
he was my kid's age, you were all over the place. Like
that's exactly right. That's
exactly
right.
How it goes.
Hey, before we kind of get into the topics tonight, there's something I wanted to ask you guys, and obviously listeners can chime in on this. I'm curious. We haven't talked a lot about Twitter recently, and I'm curious, like, what you guys. I know we're all on Twitter. We use it to different degrees, but like it's been like 6 months since the big ownership changeover and all that kind of stuff. They obviously took away the blue check marks here recently.
People were upset about that.
And I mean, I was actually surprised at how few people, who had the blue check marks and had them taken away really cared when it all came down to it. And obviously you can say it's a status thing or whatever, but the biggest thing with the blue check marks to me is like helping authenticate like the real Adam Schefter, for example, from the fake Adam Schefter accounts that tweet, bogus trades and, all that kind of stuff. I'm on there for sports basically, but
news
just here within the last week or so, they've got this For You tab and the Following tab.
That's annoying. I don't like it.
And more, I'm predominantly on the Following, but more and more, like I look at my timeline and it's like, who are these people? I'm not following these people. Like where are all these people? So I switched over just yesterday to For You, and it's like all the people I'm following.
Yep.
They're not in the Following timeline. So I don't understand what's going on right now with Twitter. It's just constantly something.
Jess uses it way differently than I think you and I do, and he's more locked in than I am. I won't even include you, Sean, because I don't want to step on toes here. But he's more locked into the Twitterverse than I am. I hate the For You and the Following. The For You, I get a lot of like Notre Dame stuff. I get a lot of high school stuff. It's really kind of the stuff that I want.
And that's what I was going to say. I didn't realize it was all there because just like you said, there's like so many like Notre Dame related. So, like Brian, for example, for some reason doesn't show up in my Following. I flip over to For You and there's all these Brian Driscoll tweets.
100%. Yeah. I want everything all in the same place. I don't want to have to go back and forth. I don't like that. I follow people because I want to follow them.
Right.
So put them all in the same place. I wish there was an option that I could turn that off.
Shouldn't be that hard.
I know.
But it is.
I honestly, I just use the Following. I never even switch over to the For You because
it's a different world. It's
the one time I was on there, I was just.
It's like going from South Bend School Corporation to Penn. I mean, it's like.
There's just enough stuff that I don't care about, to be honest with you.
But the For You is stuff you care about. It's like the stuff that's closer to what you're. I don't know. I find the For You to be way more engaging to what I want to know.
Yeah. Tommy's out there trumpeting Elon. Go ahead. He's driving Twitter into the ground is what he's doing. So
other than
not
that,
Twitter was, Twitter was at least, for our needs, even though, there were plus and minuses to Twitter to begin with before he bought it. It's just become a garbage dumpster since he took it over because he has no idea what he's doing. And the algorithms are all jacked up, obviously, and they're trying to make it into something else.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Tommy's laughing. You can laugh all you want. can like Elon because that's your political leaning, but it doesn't make Twitter a great app. So let's just get on with the subject at hand here today. Which Irish wide receiver are you willing to wager will have the bigger 2023 season? Jaden Greathouse or Tobias Merriweather? Coming right out of the gates blazing. Let's go.
Yeah, you are.
This is a hot question to start things off.
I think it's an easy one, though. How's this
So
not
who
an
are you
easy
going
question?
with?
You're going with Merriweather all day and twice on Sunday. There's no way. Like, look, Greathouse had a great spring game. There's no doubt about it. He benefited from the fact that there were no other good receivers on his team. That's my opinion. He had freshmen and like Salerno, and like of course he was going to get a lot of touches and things like that from the first team quarterback. Like that's not surprising to me. Tobias Merriweather is ready to absolutely break out. He's had a year in college. He knows what to expect. He's been popping all of spring. He didn't get a chance to pop for all the fans because we all know why. I think he's going to just watch the relationship of Sam Hartman and Tobias Merriweather once the season starts, and we will laugh that this question was even asked.
Vince is going bold. I agree with you, but I'm not that bold. I think that both these guys are going to have productive seasons when you add someone like Sam Hartman, but I do agree that Tobias is going to have, more of a production, more output, I guess I should say. And because of like what you were saying, he has that year of experience, the knowing of the offense, the knowing of the system, that kind of stuff. And I think that's going to translate well. As a freshman, there's just so much to do once it becomes, actual game planning. It's one thing to know your offense and the same defense that you've been going against all of spring. But when you start game planning and having to learn things, I think at a more rapid pace, that's when it's going to catch up to someone like Greathouse.
I was hoping I was going to get to be a tiebreaker, but it's going to be a clean sweep. It's unanimous. And I was hoping it was going to be more difficult than this. Like, I don't know if Salty is in here.
Salty's he is.
Yeah. Salty's saying that, where'd it go?
Oh, sorry. I pulled
up. I think we both hit simultaneously.
We did.
He said it's going to be like Thomas and the Great One. They'll be catching different kinds of passes. The answer is both. And Jason says he thinks JT has the most production, and he might.
He very well might.
Boy, and we're not saying that either Tobias or Greathouse is going to be the leading receiver. We're just talking about between the two. And my point is kind of, I think, what you guys touched on is, okay, Jaden Greathouse had a nice spring game against like a split squad type situation, and he got to catch all the passes from Sam Hartman. And as I said going into that game, I want to see Tobias Merriweather have the chance to catch passes from Sam Hartman. That's what I want to see, and I think we're going to see it. So, like, even though Tobias didn't do it in the blue gold game, I think it's coming this season. Yes. And I'm not saying that means it's not coming for Jaden Greathouse, but I still, there's a new regime offensively, a different mindset or whatever, but I still have to see it before I believe a freshman wide receiver is going to go out there and catch even more than 10 or 12 passes. We've got to see them be willing to put them out on the field early and somewhat often. We know these guys are talented. We know that Marcus Freeman has said that all three of these freshmen and potentially a fourth will contribute this year. Got to see that in action first. And I just, Tobias made a lot of plays. They just weren't plays out there for everybody to see on Saturday a couple of weeks ago. He made a lot of plays during the spring. So that's where I'm going, and I agree with Jason. Breakout season for Tobias Merriweather this year.
And I think also, I think a great question maybe in the future would be Tobias versus JT. Like, who's going to have the best season out of the two of them? I think we might have some split decision on that one. And honestly, it depends on what day you ask me which way I would go on that, because I think they both are going to have a really, really good season. And then if you just have Deion Colsey be a compliment to those two, that's fantastic. And then who was it? There's somebody in the chat that said, if you get those three guys going, it's right here from James. He's like, if you get Colsey going, you got a three-headed monster on the perimeter, and then Greathouse and Flores are just a bonus. And that's I think that's absolutely accurate.
And you haven't even talked about Tyree yet and what Tyree can do.
Absolutely. Like, where we were a year ago to where we are now, talking about the wide receivers, I mean, it's a different world. I mean, it's an absolute different world right now.
I think it's something to be excited about.
Absolutely. And I've said it before. What I don't know as much with Tobias is he as versatile positionally as like what we saw from Jaden Thomas and Jaden Greathouse, both in the blue gold game. We saw them both play slot. We saw them both play outside. Like, is Tobias going to be used that way? That helps both of those. That helps anyone out who can be that flexible, and it's going to do nothing but help Notre Dame out as well, because going back to before the blue gold game, we had some people asking, well, who's going to be the number one slot? Is it going to be Thomas? Is it going to be Tyree? And I said it doesn't matter, because we're going to see so much of them on the field at the same time, because of that positional flexibility that they have.
It could almost turn into kind of like basketball, seeing which wide receiver groups and pairings work best with each other, what those kind of rotations and on-field, pairings look like. And I think that's something that will be fun too, is having a good pool of talent and different guys who can do different things, and then seeing how they, combine on the field together.
You go big, you go small, you go fast, you go physical. I mean,
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we hit our next question, the friendly reminder to smash the like button and, of course, subscribe, rate, and review. We do appreciate it as always. Hope you're having a great Friday, by the way. It's beautiful outside where we are. Finally. It's like,
that's why I'm so excited to get to this game. It's $2 beer nights on Fridays before first pitch.
I mean, that's
they'll do anything to get you into a Guardians game, won't they? It's like minor league baseball.
Divisional matchup against the Twins. What more could you ask for?
Good baseball.
I mean, the Cubs were like minor league baseball the last few years, except they charged extreme major league prices.
You are not wrong, but they don't have a problem getting butts in the seats.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
No, they can do that. They can get away with it.
Yes, they can.
I mean, they
can.
It looks packed for a day game today.
When they sold off the team, speaking of Twitter, when they sold off the team a couple of years ago, I tweeted something to that effect. And of course, I got backlash from all these Cubs fans. And it's like, look, I'm not bashing Cubs fans because you show up. It's Wrigley Field tourist destination. People are going to go regardless of the product on the field. That's what you have to face as a Cubs fan, and management will use that to its advantage anytime they get, when they decide that it's time to not pay somebody, and basically put a minor league product on the field for a couple of years.
No doubt. No
They've
doubt.
done it before. Did it the last. I mean,
yeah.
They've got some talent there now, though. These guys are moving up, so it's good to see some actual big league talent out there on the field.
80 wins and above. That's all we are rooting for.
Yep. Let's do another Notre Dame football question, and football more generally. So Stuart Mandel of The Athletic released his way too early top 25 for this season. He's got Notre Dame at number 11. So here's the top 10. Here's what he's got in front of Notre Dame right now. Georgia at number 1. Understandable. 2-time defending national champion. Just went undefeated. Followed by LSU, Michigan, USC, Ohio State, Alabama at number 6, Washington, Penn State, Florida State, and Tennessee. So, two-pronged question. Is Notre Dame rated fairly rated, whatever you want to look at it? And give me 2 teams you will guarantee will not be in the top 10 at the end of the season. Go.
So there's a lot of layers to this question, Vince. I'll take the lead on this one.
Okay, all right.
Vince was playing poker face when I was going through that list. By the way, I wanted to see some expression changes on his face when I was reading some of those names. But
I've got some gut reaction that I want to bring out, but I'm trying to think logically on how to spin my argument. So
that's what I have broken down my argument to a T. I think, and I think the rationale will be great. So I in no particular order, I agree with that, like, first top 6 chunk of teams: Georgia, LSU, Michigan, USC, Ohio State, Alabama. Like, I think that those teams fall within the top 10 somewhere, wherever they're dispersed, whatever. Those are top 10 teams to me. And then I split it in kind of half after that: Washington, Penn State, Florida State, Tennessee, and Notre Dame. And I think that Notre Dame is better than all of those teams ahead of them: Washington, Penn State, Florida State, and Tennessee. So I don't think that they're fairly rated. And I think I would have them kind of right after that first tier that I just was talking about. And then to go a step further to answer the second part of the question, two teams that I can guarantee won't be in there at the end of the season is Washington and Penn State. And then I kind of came up with a chunk of teams that I would add back in to my top 10.
Man, you're all over the place right now.
Overkill.
Yeah. you're just shooting through everything
Yeah.
now. So Washington and Penn State are the two you're guaranteeing won't be in the top 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think Florida State and Tennessee are going to be there either, though. Like that's what I was trying to say. I don't think all four of those teams belong there. And I think the four teams that would replace them would be Notre Dame, Clemson, Oregon, North Carolina.
Tennessee was kind of my first instinct, and they are sitting there right on the edge at number 10, but apparently they're pretty high on this new quarterback they've got this year. But yeah, I think I don't disagree with a lot of what you said.
Does that mean it's my turn? Good.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to get the hoi polloi out of here.
Okay.
So I agree with Jesse that you can go anywhere with the bottom group. That bottom group, they could all be out potentially. As I look at, I think number one, I think LSU is rated way too high. I just do. I think Michigan is rated too high, I think, overall, but the problem is their schedule is a joke. So they're going to stay.
Their schedule is a joke, and they've been in the playoffs 2 years in a row.
So they're going to stay wherever they're rated, and I don't think they're going to fall out. They beat Ohio State last year, right? So we can say a lot about Michigan, and I can not like them, and I don't like them, but I think they'll end up in the top 10 because their schedule is so incredibly soft. So I think they're going to stay. I don't think they belong, but I think they're going to stay. I would put USC higher, actually, in this rating than they currently are. I think Ohio State might be a bit high because I'm not 100% sold on their quarterback, and same thing with Alabama, right? But I don't think Washington, Penn State, Florida State, or Tennessee are going to be in the top 10 when it's all said and done.
100% agree.
I really don't. I think they're going to fall off. I think they're going to fall off fairly early, and they're not going to be able to scratch their way back in. Now, if you're a Notre Dame fan, do I think they're fairly rated? I don't. I think they are a top 10 team. I do.
Right.
I think you could make an argument that they're a top 5 team, but I'm okay with them being outside the top 5. I really am okay with it because they're going to face Ohio State, who's higher ranked. They're going to face USC, who's higher ranked. That's fine. They've got plenty of on-field. Yeah, they're Clemson, who is going to climb because their schedule isn't super difficult either, right? They're going to climb. So Notre Dame has an opportunity to prove on the field that they're a top 5 team. So I don't really have an issue with where they're rated right now. I think they should be able to sneak into the top 10. That's where they should be. I like them better than Florida State. I like them better than Tennessee. Penn State's getting a lot of publicity because of their offense. Okay.
But it's the same thing every year. When has a Penn State offense ever just been like, wow?
Right.
Well,
again, the Big Ten. So,
but they've also, like when you look at them, they're going to have to play Michigan and Ohio State. There's no way all three of those teams are going to be
absolutely good call.
Two will, most likely Michigan and Ohio State, or like you said, if Ohio State finally has a season where the quarterback does bring them down, where they have questionable quarterback play, then maybe Penn State ends up in there at that point, and Ohio State is a little bit lower. I mean, honestly, if you want to look at this as a hot take opportunity, the hot take is Alabama's going to end up outside the top 10. Now, I'm not.
And they could.
I'm not going to go out on a limb and guarantee it, but look at the situation they're in at quarterback right now,
and
that's like when you look across the top 10. Georgia obviously loses Stetson Bennett. No one's looking at Georgia and going, "Oh, you're losing Stetson Bennett." That's a huge. We know what's carried Georgia over these these two national championships. But like the question that was in there from Paul, and you touched on it a little bit, why is LSU in the first tier when has LSU ever deserved first tier preseason pick? I don't understand. Well, they beat Alabama last year. And when you look at their schedule, like you talked about Michigan's schedule being a joke, I mean, Alabama is the toughest team they're going to play. We just talked about them having problems. They're going to play Florida State again to open up the season. So we'll find something out right away about both of those teams. One of those two teams is going to have a loss. right off the top. But you look at the rest of LSU's schedule, and you look at the fact they have Jaden Daniels coming back. That's why they're in the top 10. Like when you look at most of these teams that are in there, they have returning quarterbacks. Washington, Michael Penix. I'm sure that's why everyone is high on them, because people are already saying, oh, Michael Penix, he'd be the second quarterback taken in the draft and all that different kind of stuff. But they still got to play Utah and USC as well. So there's, the rest of their Pac-12 schedule is not going to be that great. My initial instinct was Penn State, Florida State, knock them both out. Those are the two that I would guarantee. Washington's not far behind, really. But again, they've at least got a better quarterback, and they play in a softer conference. So I won't guarantee that they'll be out, but I'm pretty sure that they'll be out when it's all said and done.
I just have a hard time with a lot of those teams being in the top 10. I mean, somebody's going to have to reside in the top 10. I mean, somebody's going to, and there's going to be an unknown team that we're not even thinking about that's going to be in the top 10, because there always is, right? Yeah. So, is there a Big 12 team in the top 10?
There is not.
Yeah. So somebody from the Big 12 is going to have
that's a good point.
Statistical season, right? They're going to go undefeated or one loss or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. 10. You've got 3 Big 10 teams and 4 SEC teams.
Right. They're going to knock each other off. I mean,
That's basic math.
Something's wrong with my function here, Vince. Can you knock that question out of there you go. For some reason, I can put them in, but I can't take them out.
All right. Can I give you a Michael Scott? That's what she said.
I was waiting for some kind of snide remark,
I mean, I can't just let it sit there.
That's right. Well, it's been a big week as we shift gears a little bit to basketball. Been a big week for Micah Shrewsberry. He's just tearing it up right now on the recruiting trail. He's first he got 3 commits in as many days from 3 incoming freshmen, the 2023 class. And then yesterday he picked up a commit from 2024 guard Cole Serta, who's considered the best 3-point shooter in the state of Illinois. So how you guys feeling about Irish men's basketball right now?
I mean, I feel good about what he's doing. He's working his butt off on the recruiting trail. He actually tweeted yesterday about how he's been on the road for a long time and he's ready to get back at it, but he needs to take a nap. Like, I thought that was pretty funny. He had like the gif of the guy like falling down, like passing out. Like, okay, all right, Shrews, I like your sense of humor. I get on board with that, but he's clearly working his butt off on the recruiting trail. That's a happy sign from Notre Dame basketball. Like, I'll take that all day long. And he still has, I think, 3 or 4 scholarships to hand out for next year. So, what is he going to do in the transfer portal? Like, what is that going to look like from a graduate transfer standpoint? Like, I think he's building a pretty decent foundation. I'm not ready to say they're going to be, over 500 team next year, but I like what he's putting together. He's getting guys excited about Notre Dame. He's getting the fans excited about Notre Dame again. Maybe when we actually go to games this year, there's going to be, butts and seats. That would be nice, even though they're probably not going to win a ton of games, but they're going to be scrappy. They're going to play hard. I like what he's putting together just from the simple fact that he's grinding on the recruiting trail. Like, good for him.
Yeah, I think that he's putting together a pretty complete roster, because you look at this guy, he's more of a, kind of like a shooting guard or a small forward. And you look at his tape and he's got a really good shooting motion, very smooth, good, court vision, good passer of the ball. And you kind of look at that and the other pieces that he's gotten so far, you can see kind of the roster coming together. And I think that's something to definitely be excited about. And like you were talking about, Vince, like he's definitely just grinding away at the recruiting thing. And that's something that we've seen similar with Marcus Freeman, and something that gets us excited. And, seeing some of these kind of recruits come to fruition is something to look forward to with basketball as well.
Look, the job, the first priority that he had when he took over, like you can talk about winning national championships as your goal and all that kind of stuff. And, all the, recruiting was the big thing. He had a roster to fill out, especially for this year. And at the very least now, he has a 4-member incoming freshman class, which is 3 more than he had when he took over. Obviously his son helped out, but he got 3 guys who were going to play for him at Penn State, who are now going to play for him at Notre Dame, and Serta's in the same boat for 2024. But it's just like with Marcus Freeman. When you look at this whole thing, the reason those guys decided not to go to Penn State and come here is the reason they decided to go to Penn State to begin with, because of the relationship that they have with the head coach that, that they built with him in recruiting. And it's, these guys aren't all necessarily high-end recruits, but at the same time, there's a lot of upside with these guys. They're going to be pretty raw. I agree with you, Vince. I still think that being a 500 team would probably still be a pretty good accomplishment for him in season number 1, considering how little, there's basically no experience on the returning roster with the exception of the Northwestern transfer that they're bringing in. And you've got all these young guys, but there's a lot to work with. And like you said, I think they're going to play hard. I think it's going to be a team that's going to lean into some defense, which is something we're not necessarily used to seeing here over the years. So they might take their lumps in the first year or two, whatever it happens to be. But I like the way he's building this thing up. I like the way he's gone out and attacked the recruiting trail, in the short amount of time that he's been out there. It's good to see.
It's refreshing.
Yes. So one of our subscribers on the boards, I think it was earlier this week, they made a list of 10 people they will never root for again. So what I want to know, who is the number 1 person, or it could be a team maybe, I guess as well, but number 1 person on your list you'll never root for again?
Well, I'll lead this off because I don't know which direction Jesse's going to go. I'm going purely on, I saw his list back when he put it out, and it was all players that have transferred out of Notre Dame or former coaches, that kind of a thing. Clearly Brian Kelly is on that list for me, but I thought that was too obvious.
I was going to say, I was going to wait and see what you
obvious.
said. We can kind of I think
right.
We can all kind of stipulate to Brian Kelly, right?
Right. And I don't know that I ever rooted for him specifically as much as I was rooting for the team, and now I root against him, specifically. Well, for me, I have to say, because I was rooting for the 49ers when they played the Ravens in the Super Bowl when Jim.
Wow. Oh man, I don't know what happened to Vince there, because he said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vince."
I'm just saying, I did root for him when he was the coach of the 49ers.
Oh, Jim Harbaugh. Okay. Gotcha.
Who'd you think I was talking about? The 49ers in general?
Yes.
I actually respected Jim Harbaugh when he was at Stanford.
No,
I
good
liked
point.
what he
Me
built
too.
at Stanford, and when
I love the whole, when
Yes.
he went toe to toe with Pete Carroll and that whole thing.
Yes.
And it's what's your deal? And that
I
whole
loved
going
it.
for 2 and all. I did too.
And
Because he was we didn't know anything about him at that
Right.
point. And Stanford was not good up until that point.
Right, exactly. And I kind of dug hey, we're going to go I formation. I'm going to put a tackle at fullback, and we're going to run it right down your throat. I kind of dig that. I like that. Then he went to Michigan, and he lost his ever-loving mind and everything. I'll never root for Jim Harbaugh ever again. And when, he might have been the head coach of the Colts, and he might have been, all these different things, I was like, no, don't do this to me. I just can't root for Jim Harbaugh. I just can't. I can't.
I honestly had a really hard time with this question. It's I don't know who I feel so strongly about. And then I just kind of thought about it more of in terms of my time as being a Notre Dame fan. And I think the one person I wouldn't root for again is Charlie Weiss. I think at Notre Dame, he kind of didn't leave the program very, very well. And I think that he kind of didn't maximize a lot of talent and potential that he had at the time. And then also what he did to the Kansas program after leaving Notre Dame as well. And so the combination
Double
of those
whammy.
two, as a college coach, he just kind of not wrecked programs, but he definitely wrecked one program, and I think didn't do enough at another. So I went with Charlie Weiss for my answer.
Very interesting, because he was obviously a savior for a couple of years until things.
Sure.
I think he kind of rode the coattails of other recruiting classes and things like that. And I think his style of offense lured some other players and the potential to kind of springboard that game into the NFL. But I don't think he really cared too much about winning. It more so, I guess. And
Well, a lot of his pitch was about,
Get
you
it
get to the
NFL.
NFL, he liked flashing the bling, the Super
Yeah.
Bowl rings around and stuff
Which
like
is a
that.
great strategy. I don't have a problem with that, but you need to flash it to the defenders too that you're recruiting. Like that would
Yeah.
be good to get good defensive players, not
right.
just your offensive players.
But it's not
know.
just defense, you still
You have to
the
develop
overall
kids
the
in
overall
college.
lesson.
That's the problem.
Yeah, he didn't know how to develop
No.
a college roster. That's
Right.
why you
100%.
had 2007 and very mediocre after 2007.
Right.
Even though he didn't inherit necessarily a lot of high-end, highly recruited guys. Like Brady Quinn, it's not like he was, the most sought-after quarterback in the country, but he was a fit for the offense that
Right.
Charlie Weiss ran, and there were some tools around him. It's not like Samardzija was that highly rated either, but he inherited some experience and it all fell off as soon as you had to bring in guys who lacked experience.
Well, and Willingham's staff, for everything you could say about Willingham, and they did teach the fundamentals, because all those guys that played under Weiss for 05 and 06, they were fundamentally sound. And so Weiss was able to take those guys, get the schematic advantage, and be successful. It's when the guys that he actually recruited and had to develop started to see the field. That's when you saw the problem, because they were never developed, because he never, took the ones off the field, essentially. That's all that practiced. And so they didn't develop anybody. So as soon as those guys were gone, he did a great job of coming in and capitalizing off the development of the previous staff. After that, it was all downhill.
Yeah, I agree. Those are some interesting, and the whole thing, and I've been down this rabbit hole with the Kansas stuff before, but
Yes, you have.
Weiss wrecked because it was back before you could oversign, and obviously before the transfer portal where you could go out and replenish your roster. The numbers were so low, and Kansas was never able to dig out of that hole. It took literally like a decade to dig out of that hole. So we don't have to go down that again. I do like your Harbaugh answer though, Vince, because like you said, like going back to the Stanford days, I was pulling for him for a while, and then things obviously changed real quickly, and then he became a 49er, and now Michigan, so it's a lot different now. I'm just going with Aaron Rodgers though, and it's not that I was like,
man, I forgot about that.
Let me finish. It's not that I cheered for him, but I at least didn't mind him, as long as they weren't playing the Cowboys and that kind of thing.
Fair enough.
But it all changed as soon as they drafted Jordan Love, and just everything, the more Aaron Rodgers started talking publicly, the more it's like, what? You're just such a drama queen. You just are, you want to say that you don't care about the media, but as soon as someone says the littlest thing, you're lashing back out at the media. And, now he's obviously not afraid to get out there in front of the cameras in New York. He's courtside at the Knicks games and all that stuff, which is like,
it's a honeymoon. He's in the honeymoon phase, Sean.
Yeah.
Just wait. Wait.
Sure.
Wait till he throws that pick six to lose the game, or, whatever happens that in any way negative, he's going to get eaten alive. And I am here for it, people.
Paul says, if we're talking ex-Notre Dame people, he only has two. Brian Kelly, obviously, and Bob Davie. Bob Davie is an interesting one.
Bob Davie's a good one. I think he was kind of put in a position he wasn't ready for. And so, part of that, I don't blame him, but he didn't do a good job. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. But he never should have gotten the job in the first place.
Right. And it's not just that he wasn't, ready for it. It's that, he was just, complaining out loud about pep rallies and just, all these things that obviously people at Notre Dame embrace. And he just,
you can't do that.
Yeah. He just never fully embraced what Notre Dame. It was obvious that he would have rather been back at Texas A&M coaching football, not at Notre Dame. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Charles Barkley told Ernie Johnson he's never listened to a sporting event on the radio because he thinks it's, quote, the stupidest thing in the world, end quote.
Mind-boggling? I'll go mind-boggling. How has it never happened to Charles Barkley that he's in the car when there's a sporting event going on and he wants to know what's going on with it? It happens all the time. All the time. It makes no sense to me. It's a very typical Charles Barkley answer. I just don't get it. And he clearly doesn't understand the talent that it takes to do sports on the radio, to paint the picture.
I would say it's crazy, but slightly believable, because there are times where I'm like watching. I mean, I'll be watching some stuff sometimes on TV, and I'll mute it just because I just don't want to listen to what's going on. And I think sometimes it can cloud your own perception of what's going on at times too. And, there's just especially it feels like I remember watching the national championship game a couple of years ago. It just feels like so much background noise of just and covering up what's actually going on. But I actually have more of a liking to the radio, specifically to what you were talking about, Vince, of like not being able to see it, and it does paint the picture of something that that you ultimately can't see. And so to me, I like to watch it and have it on mute, or listen to it on the radio and have someone else paint the picture for me. So I kind of get it, but it's still crazy at the same time. And that's kind of on brand for who Charles Barkley is. He just says the craziest stuff.
Yeah,
exactly.
To say that's like Ernie Johnson was like, you can't tell me you've never been driving in the car and turned on a game on the radio. You're 60 years old. And he's like, nope. He's like, I got a flat screen TV,
in the car. Like, come on.
Well, not in the car, but he's just saying, and I get it. Like 99% of the people, if you've got the option between watching it on TV and listening to the radio, you're going to watch it on TV because you want to see the game. I get that. But like there's not much better, I think, than like summertime, putting on a baseball game on the radio, that kind of thing. And it just hit me to my soul as a lifer radio guy to hear this, because there's just, you get to as a play-by-play guy, there's so much more that you get to do as a radio guy, because people are relying on you solely for the description. And, as a local radio guy, you get to have different levels of excitement that, whereas, you might get excited for a national game, but you still got to be relatively neutral as much as possible, So like, to me, there's, again, not much better than a game on the radio. To hear Charles Barkley say that it's the stupidest thing ever, it kills me. It kills me.
I like listening to Cubs games on the radio more than I like listening to
the
Marquee Network.
Pat Hughes, the Cubs radio guy, I think he's doing a lot of Sunday games on TV now. Mm-hmm. And it's like the best thing when Pat Hughes is doing the TV.
It's the mashup.
I was going to bring up too. Did you guys know that they were having Joe Girardi on for a few home games there?
Yeah, I saw some of that.
I think he's part of the Marquee Network now. And I was like, why does this guy sound familiar? And then at one point they're like, yeah, Joe Girardi. And I was like, oh, that's who it is.
Marquee's got a lot of analysts that they kind of run in and out of there.
I'm going to say it, hot take. I'm not a fan of Boog Sciambi, but, I've said that before.
Yeah, see, the problem with so many of these regional networks is they don't want like local homer sounding guys. They want everyone to sound like a national TV guy. And obviously Boog Sciambi is a national TV guy. So even though he's like a good play-by-play guy for ESPN, I don't think he's the best fit for a local broadcast.
Right.
Yeah. Paul, going back to the last question, Paul said, what if Aaron Rodgers went to the Cowboys when I said that I wouldn't pull for him? One, he would be like 42 by the time he ever gets to the Cowboys. So I wouldn't want that to happen. Two, obviously I'm going to pull for him if he's with the Cowboys. I have no choice. Just like I hated Jimmy Johnson when he was with Miami, but do you think I minded him when he was winning Super Bowls in Dallas? No, I didn't. That's all I care. It's all anybody cares about, right? It's like, you win, it forgives a lot of sins. So
it's true.
Speaking of which, how about the fact that 3 of the last 4 NBA championship head coaches have all been fired? Steve Kerr of the last 4 is the only remaining coach with a job right now.
I think it's wild that the Bucks coach got let go.
Removed.
Giannis was kind of having some back issues. His actual brother died during the playoffs too. I don't know if you guys ever heard about that. And the Heat are probably going to beat the Knicks in this round too. So they're going to lose to the last two teams is probably going to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. I just think it's very dramatic considering a lot of things that were going on.
Yeah.
Dramatic
James says, again, going back to the kind of the last topic, I don't remember Quinn starting as a freshman a million beers ago. He didn't start as his freshman year was 2003. He did start in 2004, though. He became the starter, took over for Carlisle Holiday in 2004. So it would have been his sophomore. So I don't think we said freshman year. Maybe we're just thinking that because we were talking about experienced players and all that.
Be redshirt freshman, but not true freshman.
Right. Kentucky Derby's this weekend. Where does the Kentucky Derby rank as a bucket list item for you guys in terms of attending the Kentucky Derby?
I would put it in my top 10 of like bucket list things. I would be top 10 like sports related bucket list items, not like overall, like, life, I guess you could say bucket list items, like going to different countries or something like that. But in terms of sports, I would put it up there as something that I would really enjoy doing at some point. I like the getting like a really nice tailored outfit, being able to go down and bet on a horse. I think that's something that'd be really fun, and just like what comes with it. It's just one of those events where it's like, you see a lot of other famous people and celebrities. So I just think it would be overall, just like as a fanboy, it'd be kind of fun to do just 1 year though. I don't think I'd ever do it more than once, but it's definitely something that would be up there in a top 10 bucket list item that I'd only want to do, I think, one time.
I don't know if it would make my top 10, even if it's just sports related items. If it did, it would be like 9 or 10. It would be pretty low. I don't know. It doesn't really intrigue me. Like, I've had it on in the background. I've watched it. It seems like it takes 1.5 years to get to the actual Kentucky Derby race. And then it's only like 2 minutes long. And it's like, okay, awesome. Time to watch something else.
But if you were there, like it'd be.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm not like, you're supposed to have the mint julep and you're supposed to get all dressed up and your lady's supposed to have the big hat. And, it's like.
That's why I'd have some sort of like cowboy hat or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's got to get like a nice bowler. Yeah. And you got to shell out a lot of money.
Yeah, you do.
Just to dress to be there. Right.
Yes. A lot of money.
So, and I'm sure it would smell like horse manure. So, but it is manure. I don't know. So you're saying it's very low on your bucket list, Vince?
It is fairly low. Yeah. I mean, I guess I wouldn't like give away free tickets or something like that. But at the same time, you're spending a lot of money to get dressed up for this thing too.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because again, even if you got free tickets and it's really one of those, because of the way it is, you either have to go with a group of friends or you got to take a date.
Yes.
So, like you're married. So you and your wife would have to shell out probably twice as much as the ticket value just to get the clothes so you don't look out of place at a place. And me and my wife, for that matter too.
Oh my gosh.
So I think it would be nice, but I'd have to have a sponsor, I think, to
right.
to pay my way.
Just put it on the back of the coat.
That's right. That's right. All right. On the subject of horse racing, using something from a movie, whether it's a character's name, a line from a movie, whatever, it's got to come from a movie. Give me the name of your Kentucky Derby horse.
This might be too easy, but it's my favorite superhero. I would go, my horse name would be the Incredible Hulk. I think it's a pretty catchy horse name.
It is, but it's probably
Here comes Incredible Hulk. That's a little,
probably copyrighted. I don't know.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's a superhero that's owned by Marvel Comics or whatever. Like,
no, nope.
Okay.
What's yours then? Oh, he wrote it down. Hot Route?
Hot Route. I love it.
Hot Route. Hot Route. Hot Route. And down the stretch they come. Hot Route in the come on. Hot Route, baby.
Here's Hot Route on the outside. Hot Route.
Beautiful.
Coming down the stretch.
See, that's more creative and better than mine. That's why mine was kind of boring. I understood that, but it's what came to mind.
Man, there were like so many that came to mind. And that kind of popped into my head for a minute. I'm like, what from Wedding Crashers would be it? And Hot Route was the first thing that came to mind.
I blame you because it's in a lot of the opens or like some of the audio that we've done over the years. So I hear it all the time. I love that movie. Like, come on.
I had to go back to Pulp Fiction because Pulp Fiction is
Okay.
probably my favorite movie of all time. And again, there were a lot of options in Pulp Fiction. Like I thought about $5 milkshake, like that would be a heck of a name for a racehorse. Here comes
Yeah.
$5 milkshake, Jackrabbit Slim, again,
Ooh,
like
that's a good
Jackrabbit
one.
Slim coming. I went with Zed's Dead. Zed's Dead. That's
Ooh,
what
okay.
That's what Bruce Willis, the boxer, when he comes out and they're getting on the motorcycle and the keychain says Zed and the girlfriend says, "Who's Zed?" And he said, "Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead." So
Yeah,
I went with
yeah.
Zed's dead. Here comes Zed's dead down the stretch.
Okay.
Down the
All
stretch they go. Yeah. So that's what I went with. All right. I think we're down to our last question now tonight. We talked earlier this week. This is another movie question. We talked about a couple sequels that are coming out. Long-awaited sequels that are coming out. Both of them more than 20 years in the making by the time they ever hit theaters, if they do. Gladiator and Dodgeball, they're in the works. My question for you, what is the one sequel that never should have been made? You can't say those two because they
that
haven't
never
come out
should
yet.
have been made, as in
Never
they've
should have
already
been made.
it. Oh,
Sequel has already been made. They
Okay.
never should have made this sequel.
I read
Vince
that
is
question
clearly
wrong.
thinking, so
Yeah.
I'll take the lead on this one per usual. I'm just kidding. I would go with, I'm going to keep it close to where I'm at right now. Major League 2, I think, was very bad considering how good Major League 1 was. So that's what I went with.
That's fair. Major League 3 was even worse.
Oh, the Return to the Minors or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that was horrible.
Also thought about Caddyshack 2 as something that was a bad sequel.
And Major League
Fletch
3.
2. Fletch 2 was horrible.
Yeah.
I think it was Fletch Lives or something like that.
And Major League 3 had my man Scott Bakula in it too, didn't it? Wasn't he the?
I think it did.
Like
I've probably seen it once. So
yeah, for good reason.
You've probably seen the first one like 20 times.
Yeah. I want to say Jurassic Park. How about that?
Okay.
I thought the original was really, really good. I thought some of the ones after that were pretty lame. Some of the newer ones are okay, but if they never would have made the ones after that, they never would have gotten to those. So if they stuck with the original, I think they would have been good to go.
Now, how can James say the newest Indiana Jones? It might be good. We haven't even seen it yet.
Well, and here's the other thing. Like, the first three were really good. The first three Indiana Joneses were really, really good. I think the third one might have been the best of all, in my opinion.
What was the third one?
The third one was the one with his dad. The one with
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Temple of Doom was the second one, right?
And then you had what is the name of it?
The Quest or
either way, it's the one where his dad comes into play. Sean Connery.
Right.
His dad. Yeah, that's the best one. That's by far the best one. And then they made another one. Last Crusade. Thank you. Then they made a fourth one when Indiana Jones was like 100, and now he's like 150. Like, they needed to cut it off. Like, I love Indiana Jones. Love it. But 4 and 5 were unnecessary.
I definitely stopped with The Last Crusade. I will say that. Yeah. We've got Dumb and Dumberer.
Someone said Rocky 2 through 7. I feel like
Come on, Derek. You can't go with that. Like, Rocky 2 through 4 were quality.
We're gonna be here forever now.
Quality.
Thanks, Derek.
Vince is like, I'm almost out the door.
God.
I'm just going with The Hangover 2 and 3 because The Hangover is a classic. I actually just watched it again last week. It is like so rewatchable from start to finish. 2 and 3 are just so like, and they got progressively worse as well. They were just total money grabs because the first one did so well. And there were moments in each of them, but Hangover 2 and 3 got to go.
It's fair. It's fair.
So that's what I'm going with. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it. Adelia said Caddyshack 2, another good nominee.
Another stinker. Yeah.
First Blood, Kenneth says, First Blood was amazing. The sequels usually disappointing. They were at least good enough that, like, I agree. And he's talking about Rambo, of course. And Rambo, the first one was just called First Blood, and the others were Rambo, whatever. But at least I thought that 2 and 3 were at least passable. Like, I haven't seen them in a long time. I thought they were at least passable. The original First Blood was definitely the best of all of them. So I agree with that. All right. Well, we appreciate it. Have a great weekend. I hope the weather where you are is as good as we've got it right here.
Man.
So enjoy it if you got it. And we will talk to you next week. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Monday on IB Nation Sports Talk. And of course, hit the like button and subscribe, rate, and review. Talk to you Monday.